Times. I'm the Dean, Amal Jamal.
Lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I hope to be able to come to you soon sometime.
Yes.
Yes, we'll do that too. So we with as we say, the most important audience. We're gonna start despite the low number. It's recorded, so we can use the recording afterwards in the different programs. That's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna speak English, right?
Yes.
That's the point. Okay, so welcome here. We the most important students we have on campus. I'm glad to be here, and I would like to introduce our guest, Professor Eugene Finkel, who can also speak Hebrew, Israeli. Eugene is the Kenneth Keller Professor of International Affairs at the School of Advanced International Studies, Johns Hopkins University in Bologna, in Italy. I didn't read it, but I'm gonna mention it.
It's not important.
It's a new book. It's a very new book. His last book is Intent to Destroy Russia's 200 Years Quest to Dominate Ukraine. Basic books. It sounds very interesting, timely, definitely, and has to do, of course, I can imagine, with the current war, right? And Eugene is our partner in Bologna regarding the cooperation between Tel Aviv University, and Johns Hopkins, Bologna. I hope that this message will be disseminated to more people via video, who are invited to really show some interest in the exchange program between the two universities. First of all, Johns Hopkins is a very renowned university in the U.S., and what they have in Bologna is also very, very impressive. And I just had many details earlier in the meeting with Eugene, and it's really good for our students to get there for one semester or 1 year. I'm sure they will be much more rich in terms of research, in terms of knowledge, in terms of knowing how to advance their academic career. And therefore, for me as a dean, it's very strategic to carry on with this cooperation. And I hope that we can raise the number of people interested and who apply. We have new ideas about how to reconfigure the relationship between the two sides, so it becomes much more easy for our students to go there and for the students to come here. We are very aware of the reality on the ground in Israel as a result of the war, made it almost impossible for people to come here. But we hope that the prospects for at least some type of reconciliation or some type of peace process will ease the reality and make it possible for people to come, and definitely will make it much easier for our students to go there. I'll give the floor to Eugene to introduce himself more, if he would like to say more about himself, his engagement, and the program, of course, in Bologna, and why it's attractive. The only thing I would like to finish with is that Eugene studied at the Hebrew University in the political science department, where I also studied. So we spoke about our common professors, who we, at least who I myself admire until now, and I still remember them very well. And it's very important piece of information that to put on the table. Please, Eugene.
Thank you. So thank you, everyone. But first of all, before I speak about SAIS Bologna or about myself, I actually want to introduce my colleague, head of admissions, director of admissions, Daniela Coleman, on Zoom, because she will be doing most of the talking here. Hi, Daniela. So over to you.
Thank you, Professor Finkel. Can everybody hear me in the audience?
Yes.
Yep.
Fantastic, fantastic. So what we've done today is we've prepared a presentation. It lasts about 20 minutes or so, and it concludes with a video. And halfway through the presentation, I've invited Professor Finkel to say a few words about what it's like for him as an academic to teach at SAIS and talk about the student experience. I can't see the audience, and so if at any moment someone wants to stop me because there's a question, I'll defer to the dean and the panel to inform me. But if we can quickly go to the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about what the agenda for today is. And so I don't see the audience members, so I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Johns Hopkins University, and I wanted to spend a few moments talking about our school, our strategic location in Europe. Of course, if you're in the audience today, it most likely means you're in one of the 4 master's programs with which we have the cooperative degree. So I want to talk a little bit about what this cooperative degree offers you in Bologna, obviously the actual classes you would have to take. But then we want to invite Professor Finkel as one of our resident faculty to share some of the experiences. We are what you call a practitioner's program. So that means that in addition to the faculty such as Professor Finkel, who publish and are experts in their field, we have also a number of practitioners, and we have a very heavy emphasis on professional development. We want to get you a job after you graduate. So I will spend some time also talking about what that means. But again, we'll talk about the application process, scholarships, and the most important part of this presentation, which are your questions. And so if there are no questions so far, I'll ask my colleagues to go to the next slide. Johns Hopkins University is an American institution. It was founded actually in 1876 in the city of Baltimore, which is in the state of Maryland on the east coast of the United States. It's about 45 minutes from Washington, D.C. We're most famous for our medical, I should say faculty. That's actually the first department that was created at Johns Hopkins University. We are the oldest research university in the United States. If you remember COVID, the COVID map was invented by our scientists. So, but today we are an institution that has over 10 research divisions. And so the School of Advanced International Studies, where Professor teaches and where I'm based, was actually founded in 1943. And so a little bit of history. Our founding fathers were 2 American statesmen, Paul Nietzsche and Christian Herder. And at the time in 1943 in Washington, D.C., they were looking to Europe, and they were looking to create an institution of higher learning that would bring together men and women to deal with the realities of the post-World War. And so our first campus was actually, and it's still our largest campus, is in Washington, D.C. We're actually located down the street from the Capitol building. The European campus, where this cooperative degree is in relation with, was created in 1955. A professor of diplomatic history, his name was Professor C. Haynes. He chose Bologna, or Bologna was chosen as the site. And if we go to the next slide, a little bit about the SAIS Europe and our mission. So we are an institution of higher learning that brings together men and women to deal with sort of the world, right? All the challenges that are going on, and we use an ethical framework to create leaders to deal with the challenges of the world. And so if you think about SAIS, although the actual agreement is with the Bologna campus, we are an institution on 3 continents. And that's really important as a student because it means that you have access to career services across the world. You're part of a student body of over 1,000 students. And you also have access to the academic and the teachings and the research of our faculty based in Bologna, in Washington, D.C., and our youngest campus in Nanjing, which was created in 1986. So if we go to the next slide, I want to spend some time talking about our purpose. Our purpose is to equip future leaders with the skills, the knowledge, and the ethical framework necessary to tackle the complex issues. We believe that being a student at SAIS, and particularly with this cooperative degree, is the perfect complement to give you the opportunity to learn from the best. We train you to become an expert. And we want you to build your global network and advance your career. We go to the next slide. This former U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who's lectured at SAIS, and this is a direct quote from him, back in 1943, the world was reeling from the Second World War. The old order was in ruins, and Nietzsche and Herder, who are two founding fathers, believed that this institution would play an integral role in building a new world order. And our graduates have fulfilling that promise ever since. So if we go to the next slide, a little bit about Bologna. And I normally, when I'm in the audience, I would sort of ask anyone who's, first was anyone who's ever been to Italy, and but Bologna, for those of you who may not know, is a city in northern Italy. It's actually home to the oldest Western university, founded in 1088. So when you think about Bologna, and this is an image, we are a medieval city. We are sort of a hub for students from not only all across Italy, but across the world. So while the city of Bologna has about 400,000 students, 400,000 population, the city has about 90,000 students. And so it makes it a really exciting place to be a young person, to study European and transatlantic perspectives. So we are across the street, sort of in the university quarter from the University of Bologna. And so our campus, the SAIS campus, has about 200 students from 40 different countries. So you do not need Italian to come study at SAIS Europe, although we do offer an intensive course in the summer, and I think it makes living here a little bit more fun. We're an American institution for all intensive purposes. And so what that means, and what Professor Finkel will go into a little bit more detail, is as a graduate program, our classes are small, right? So we want you to be able to learn from your faculty. We want you to be able to interact with your professors. The language of instruction is English. It's sort of an Anglo-Saxon teaching style. There's a lot of interaction between you and the faculty member. And in addition to the small classes, we also have 2 research institutes. And so every week we bring in experts. We fly them in from London and from Geneva and, you know, the European capitals, from the Middle East, from even the States, where they talk about relevant topics, very much to give the students an opportunity, in addition to their coursework, to talk about the world's pressing issues. And we also, for those of you that have an interest in law, have a Center for Constitutional Studies and Democratic Development. So it's a partnership with the University of Bologna Law School. So this is probably the most important slide after Professor Finkel's intervention, which I just want to spend some time talking about. So our agreement is in cooperation with the 4 following masters. So if you are currently enrolled in the Conflict Resolution and Mediation, Cyber, Politics and Government, Sustainable Development, Security and Diplomacy, that program, if I'm not mistaken, is a 1-year program. Our Masters of Arts in International Affairs is historically a 2-year program offered in Bologna. The good news is, if you are coming to us from one of the degrees that I've just mentioned at TAU, it means we recognize the credits of your exams at TAU, and you get upper standing in the MAIA program, meaning that you do not need to spend 2 years in Bologna. It means you just spend 1 year and you get our degree. So the good news here is, it's as if you've done a 2-year master's, but we've been able to give you upper standing, and so you get the U.S. diploma from the Maryland Board of Education for our degree in Bologna. It is a very flexible program. So because you would have written a thesis at TAU, it means that when you come to us, you really have carte blanche, apart from 2 economics courses, to take anything that you want at SAIS Europe. And we have over 75 classes to choose from. So what does that look like in practice? Well, we have all of our students in the MAIA program are taking 2 economics courses at the intermediate level. So that means either you took introductory econ in your undergraduate institutions, or maybe you're taking it at TAU, and you would come to us and take our intermediate macro and micro. If you've never done economics, do not worry. You can still apply to SAIS's MAIA program. It just means that if you were admitted, it would be conditional on fulfilling introduction to economics, and we have courses that are offered virtually for you to meet that requirement. So it's important that you just bear that in mind. If you've taken introduction to economics, you would have need to receive the US equivalent of a B-. So that means in the fall, you would take 4 classes, of which one would be econ and the other 3 you get to choose. And the same thing would be valid in the spring. You would take 4 classes, of which one would be economics and the rest you choose. We would have you work with an academic advisor just to help you plan a little bit, because even though we offer courses in diplomacy and history and law and economics and environment, and Professor Finkel will talk about what he teaches in a bit, we really want you obviously to have coursework that's going to give you the nuts and bolts, the foundations of IR, but also complement what you're interested in studying. Now, the other thing I just want to ask, and I can't see the classroom, but maybe the panel can help me out here. Who is a native English speaker in the audience? Meaning that English is the language of communication. Just one? Okay.
No, Daniela, 0.
0. Okay, fantastic. So that makes it very easy. So for all of you that are non-native English speakers, when you come to campus, you would just take an English proficiency test. And that means, quote unquote, that you've met our foreign language requirement. However, at that point, if you want to take a language for fun, meaning that it is not required, we actually teach French, German, Italian, Russian, Spanish, and Arabic on campus. So that is it's an opportunity for those of you as non-native English speakers. Now, as this presentation is being recorded, for anyone that's a native English speaker, we do have a language requirement for you. We would need you to reach language proficiency by graduation. Normally, it's a non-issue because the program would have been 2 years, meaning you could start a language at the 0 level, and the end of the sort of second year with us, you would be able to reach proficiency. If you are a native English speaker, it's really important that you have proficiency in at least one of the languages that we teach, even if it's sort of advanced beginner, because you would have 2 semesters to reach proficiency in the languages that we teach: Spanish, Russian, Italian, German, French, and Arabic. So again, for the non-native English speakers, easy. You take an English test when you come, and then you could decide if you want to do a language for fun. For native English speakers, we do need some language instruction before you arrive. So I'm going to stop at this point. Does anybody in the audience members have any questions about the coursework, what's required of you? I'll get into a second about the application process later and fellowships, but does anybody have any other questions so far?
Could you please speak up?
Yeah.
Speak up.
There is a thesis that mentioned PowerPoint. Okay. What is the how many pages that you written? What's the topic? Okay, there is a thesis is mentioned on the slide at the bottom of the slide.
So the thesis would have been done at TAU, if I'm not mistaken. You guys all require a thesis?
Not for every program, no.
Not for every.
Okay. Okay, so I appreciate the clarification. So if you've done a thesis at TAU, you do not need to do a thesis at SAIS. If your program does not require, if your program doesn't have a thesis, then you would do the thesis with us. And at that point, your curriculum would be slightly different. It would be 4 classes in the fall, of which one is economics, 2 classes in the spring, of which one is economics, and the rest of the time you would need to do a thesis. The requirement for the thesis is being changed as we speak. I think it's it's about maybe 12,000 words or so, but for those of you that have not done a thesis at TAU, you would do the thesis with us, meaning you would have less courses in the spring and you would do the thesis.
Okay. Thank you for this. Any other questions? No.
Okay. Great. So if we go to the next slide, this is where I introduced Professor Finkel, who's already been introduced at the beginning, but I'm delighted that Professor Finkel is with you. He is a resident faculty member at SAIS. He's been with us for a number of years, living in Bologna. And Professor Finkel, could you share with our audience a little bit of what it's like being an academic and teaching SAIS students?
So thanks, Danielle. So I feel like I've been introduced and reintroduced a number of times already, but okay, so a bit about myself. So as Danielle and Professor and Dean Jamal said, I'm a resident faculty at SAIS in Bologna. That's my 4th year in Bologna. Before that, I was for 10 years in Washington, first in our main campus at SAIS, but before that at George Washington University, and before that at Yale University and University of Wisconsin. I was born in the Soviet Union, now Ukraine. I grew up in Israel, in Kiryat Chaim, and did my undergrad master's at the Hebrew University. So I'm pretty familiar with both the Israeli and the US university system, though I have to say that that's actually my first time physically at Tel Aviv University. I have never been here before. Now, in my own work and classes I teach, so I work mostly on political violence, regimes, democracy, mostly in Russia and Eastern Europe, and also Israel-Palestine. So I teach 4 classes. I will be more than happy to talk about, what teaching classes at SAIS is. So the classes I teach are state, society, and violence in Russia and Eastern Europe, autocracy from early states to the 21st century, genocide and mass violence. And then I also teach the methods class that prepares students to write their master's thesis if they do their thesis. And again, I will be more than happy to talk about the classes themselves and how it feels, but I'm here mostly to talk about, what SAIS is from a perspective of a professor, not just the students, and how it feels teaching at SAIS. And in short, again, I'm pretty well familiar with both the Israeli and the European and the US system, and SAIS is a unique place. And that, so you're here not from a US system, but if you're watching the recording and come from the US, so the best analogy would probably be, a small elite liberal arts college in the US, but for grown-ups and more oriented towards practical skills, understanding the world, and getting you a job and starting a career rather than, abstract theory. And what does make, this magic mix for me as a professor, and I think also for quite a few people as our students? Well, first, we are large enough, to offer a large number of classes, so you can do pretty much whatever you want and focus on almost anything you want, but, we are not too large to become an impersonal bureaucratic machine like a large university, which, first of all, means that the classes are small. So I have never taught a class that was larger than 19 students, where you can actually, build personal relations with students, get to know anyone, and have meaningful discussions. And even beyond, the classes, SAIS is a place where everyone is together. So I know pretty much every student at SAIS, no matter whether they take my classes or not, and every student at SAIS know all of the professors, because that's the center of our lives. For you as the students, because most of you are not Italian, so you are foreigners, you are there 24/7, we also make you work hard. And for us, because that's what we do. And students also all in it together. It's a place where everyone knows everyone. And, it leads to some pretty weird experience. So no matter where I go, talking to US government people in Washington or London, Brussels, Vienna, you name it, there will always be someone in the room. Hi, Professor Finkel, remember me? And of course I do remember them. You have to remember them. And once you graduate, you also get to know the alumni from early years who are extremely committed to this place, because for many of them it's the formative experience. So they become the mentors for the younger generation. They come to Bologna all the time for the alumni reunions. So there is a constant interaction between students and the alumni. Second, we don't care about departments and disciplines. We absolutely do not. We don't have departments. We don't have any divisions, and we mean it. And we come from very different backgrounds. I'm talking more about, the academic side. So we have people with PhDs in public health, in engineering, in political science, in history, nutrition, economics, and we designed the curriculum together. There are absolutely no divisions between us. We're the same school, we're the same place. So a typical day for a student would be, starting in taking a class from an economist, then moving to a class by an historian, then finish your day by taking a class by someone who counts calories and builds models on how climate change changes nutrition patterns in Africa. And as much as often as not, once the class is over, we would just, leave the classroom, go downstairs to our bar/cafeteria and continue talking over a glass of wine or coffee, because we are literally in this place all the time. Third, as a faculty also, we're a pretty small faculty, but we're extremely diverse, not just professionally, but in terms of, where we come. So I am an Israeli American born in Soviet Union, but, we also have professors who come from the US, from the UK, from Canada, Argentina, Mexico, Russia. So for those of you who are Russians, we have a professor who was born in Sakhalin, and I guess you probably have never met someone from Sakhalin, but you will if you come to SAIS, all over Europe, even New Zealand. And fourth, and Danielle also mentioned it, we have a wonderful mix of scholars and practitioners among our faculty. So how it works? Well, in terms of our resident faculty, those who are in Bologna full-time, we have about 11, 12 resident faculty who are there all the time, and we're a mix of people. So some of us are mostly scholars, we're full-time academics from the beginning to the end, and we are among the best in the world, and I'm not shy about saying it, because Johns Hopkins is one of the best universities in the world, and you have to meet all the requirements. There is no difference whether you teach in Bologna or whether you teach in the mothership campus in the US. You have to be among the best. So you get exposure to people who are among the best academics in the world. But we also have resident faculty who all have PhDs, but they also spent many years as practitioners outside academia. So for instance, one of our economists is the former governor of the Central Bank of Argentina. Also was the governor of the Central Bank of Argentina during one of the key economic crises. So you get to learn how to fix, an economy that falls apart from the person who has done it. We have people who served in very senior foreign affairs and security policy positions in the EU, in the Italian Ministry of Defense and Foreign Affairs, in the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in the US government. So you will get exposure not only to top academics, but also people who know how the real world looks like and can translate all this theoretical stuff into real world knowledge. And in addition to the resident faculty who are in Bologna full-time, we also have about a larger group of about 50 professors who come to SAIS to teach a class. And they're also a mix of scholars from top universities all over Europe, from UK, Italy, Germany, France, Sweden, and people who are academics/practitioners. So for instance, one of our adjuncts is a former Prime Minister of Italy, another is a former Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, a former Deputy Secretary General of NATO, people in top roles in industry, think tanks, and most of them are there simply because they are alumni and they love Bologna and they want to be in Bologna and they want to come back and see in students, what they see as the younger version of themselves. Also, the coffee is great and the food is good. And that also means that, it gives you exposure to networks that you would not otherwise get. And precisely because those people had the same experience as you did and come from the same place, for many of them, it also means practical and job advice when it's needed. And some of those people also will become your mentors once you're out of SAIS and once you get the job, because this Hi Professor Finkel and Hi Professor X or Y continues all your life. And finally, that also something that Daniela mentioned, we have 3 campuses, but what it means is not just 3 different locations, but we started working very hard on having classes that are across campus. So for instance, we have a class on East Asian security that is joined with a campus in Nanjing, where we have a student and a professor sitting in Bologna and another group of students and their professor sitting in Nanjing and just talking over those issues from different perspectives. We have joint classes with SAIS in Washington, where our students sit in the room in Bologna, Washington students sit in Washington, and then the professor is teaching a number of classes in Washington and then moves to Bologna and teaches from there. We're also now trying to build classes that would bring all 3 campuses together, where people from Nanjing and Bologna and Washington will be in the same time at their classrooms. Logistically, it's a nightmare because of the time differences, but at least we are trying. And also, Daniela will be talking about that. What makes SAIS so interesting is it's an extremely diverse place, not just when it comes to faculty, but also students. So the students come from many countries, and also many experience and many levels in their career. So some of them just straight on from their undergrad studies, but some of them are mid-career people who take a break from their studies, go back from various militaries, European, US, or various governments, ministries of foreign affairs, or ministries of defense. So you get exposure to different people and very different perspective that makes not just being a student, but also being a professor at this place extremely interesting and also intellectually stimulating. And once you get in the room in Washington, DC, and see people waving at you, "Hi, Professor Finkel," and you know what they do. Yeah, it's all work. So I will probably stop here unless you have some more specific questions about classes. I will be more than happy to talk about that, but Daniela, is over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Professor Finkel. Does anybody have any questions so far for Professor Finkel? As I think he's done an excellent job of giving you sort of a 360 bird's eye view of what it's like to be a student at SAIS. Are there any questions in the audience? Maybe they
But they're all smiling after this presentation, so I guess.
Good. So I think in the packages we sent over in the folders, there probably is a printout of some sample classes. So that just was to give you all. Yeah. Great. So with that, maybe we'll slide into the next slide, which I believe touches upon professional development. So, of course, you're coming to school. You're here to get a master's degree. You're here to get from our academics, both practitioners and career professors. But it's also about professional development. And some of you may have an idea of what you want to go into. And others, it's a little bit more cloudy, and that's okay. What the most important thing here is that as a professional program, we want you to come in, we want you to be curious, and not only through your academics, but also through all the opportunities that you're going to have at your fingertips. So I often use the analogy is, you're driving the bus, but we're going to give you the road, meaning that there are going to be lots of opportunities for you to have one-on-one professional coaching. You just have to make those appointments. There are skills courses. So these can be things as technical as learning Python and Strata, to advanced Excel, to your elevator pitch, to salary negotiations. And these are skills classes outside of your regular academics, because we want you to have a lot of those skills that, particularly when you enter the job force, upper level management relies on you to have, but also just to make you more competitive in the job market. One of the unique things that we do as a student at SAIS Europe, you are able to go on all the career tracks. You just have to apply to them. There's about 20 students are taken on a career track. For the ones that we host, we organize. So our career office takes students actually. So if you're interested in Brussels, interested in the EU and NATO, you would go to Brussels. If you're interested in international political risk or financial services, you would probably take the career track apply to the career track to London. For those of you that are interested in international organizations, we take our students to Geneva. I'm just naming a few here. We also go to Vienna, for example, for those of you that are interested in UN agencies and the environment. But there are also a number of study tracks. So for example, we have a professor, his name is Professor Frazzini, Justin Frazzini, and he heads this center called the Center for Constitutional Development and Democratic, CCSDD, and they actually organize a trip with students from the University of Bologna and from SAIS, where they take students to Srebrenica and to Sarajevo to study sort of breakup of the former Yugoslavia and to understand how atrocities could happen in the last century, so close after the World War II. And so these are things that you're exposed to. We believe in opportunities for you to meet with alumni. So at all of our career events, we have usually a built-in alumni reception. We also have an alumni mentoring program. If you wanted to partake in the career treks in the States, you can. So, it's just a matter of flying over there, and you could apply to the treks to Boston, to Washington, to Texas. We also have career treks in Hong Kong and Singapore and Nanjing and Beijing. So these are all opportunities. Remember, as a student at SAIS, you're a part of a graduate network of 24,000 SAISers, but you're also part of the Johns Hopkins network of 220,000 alumni around the world. So if we go to the next slide, this is, we like stats. And so we actually survey our students 6 months after graduation. So just so you all know, the last survey is going to be conducted shortly for the class of 2026, but the class of 2025. But as of now, 96% on average are employed 6 months after graduation, and they're working in all different industries. So as MAIA, you can end up in the private, the public, the nonprofit, the multilateral. We actually have a high number of, I think it's over 40% of our students end up in the private sector, but they move. And so the beauty of this degree is you really get to decide what you want to study. And it really, the sector of employment you want to go into is open. You're not pigeonholing yourself into one sort of industry or another. And this is just a sample of some of the organizations that the graduates of our MAIA program ended up working in. So if we go to the next slide, I think what we want to now talk about is the application process. So if we could click on the next slide, what I want to spend some time about is talking how we take a holistic admissions approach. And so Professor Finkel is on our admissions committee. We actually involve our faculty. And what does a holistic approach mean? It means that we try to look at you as an individual from a 360-degree angle, right? So I think that, you're all unicorns in your own way. Obviously, I don't think there's a perfect student. I think that there are certain points that we look at, and certain things you'll be stronger in, and other things you may not be as strong in, and that's okay. What we are going to look for, though, is we're going to try to see your writing skills. And so our application does request some writing samples. Quantitative is important to us. Now, you don't need to be an economist. We have lots of poets, I call them, that apply to science, but we do want to see a little bit of math, maybe stats, as you will be taking 2 economics courses when you're with us. You don't need to be valedictorian of your college class, but we do obviously want to see a robust academic transcript, and if there were any points in your transcript that you didn't do so well, feel free to talk about it. Maybe you were going through a personal issue, or that happens. It's just important to address it. And again, something that is also important for us is professional readiness. We want to see internships. If you've done military service, that also counts as work experience. It's really important for us that if you tell us that you're passionate about, I don't know, defense or working for an NGO, we want to see the thread, right? Did you volunteer for an organization? Were you active on campus? Did you do an internship in this sector? It's just to give us a sense of who you are as an individual. So If we go to the next slide, here we have the actual documents that we're looking for. So you can begin an application at any time. In fact, what I'll do is after this presentation, I'll email some important links that show sort of the application instructions, where you can start. We won't peek into your application until you submit it, but this is what we ask for. So we want a copy of your CV. At this point in your life, your CV should really be about a page, okay? Sometimes I get 21-year-olds or 22-year-olds that send me a 5-page CV, and that is not what we want. We want a page, a snapshot, where you went to undergrad, what you're currently doing for your master's, your work experiences. We do ask for 2 samples of writing, and in the world of artificial intelligence, we've actually slightly changed these questions to make them as personal as possible. My advice to you is, when submitting a sample of writing, be as specific as possible. So the first sample we ask for is a statement of purpose. A statement of purpose is sort of like a cover letter to your application. Why you want to apply to SAIS. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why is this the right program for you? So the more specific you can be, maybe mentioning professors or courses that you're interested in, I would encourage you to go to our website, read. We have lots of stories from students. We do stories from our faculty. We even have a very active Instagram account where you can see life at SAIS. But be as specific as possible. This has to be only 600 words. So the more specific you can be about why the SAIS is the right program for you, the stronger your essay will be. We also realize that you may have been through a challenge at some point in your life, and the challenge can vary. Maybe for some of you, you overcame a learning disability. Maybe some of you had to do an internship that you had a difficult supervisor, or you found yourself in an organization, maybe through a volunteer capacity, managing conflicting personalities. Whatever the challenge you faced, this is your opportunity to show us the challenge and how you overcame it, also in 600 words. We do need transcripts, so I know at this point you may not have your TAUi transcript. That's okay. We definitely would need your undergraduate. As the application for TAUi students isn't due until February 1st, if you don't have your TAUi transcript by then, we would at some point ask for that it be emailed to us. But we just want to see a little bit about what you did as an undergraduate. We just ask also that the transcripts be in English. Now, letters of recommendation. I'm sure Professor Finkel can agree with me on this one. You just need to submit 2, although you can submit up to 3. An ideal situation is where one of your letters is from a professor and one of them is from a supervisor. When reaching out to your recommenders, particularly faculty, I would advise you to maybe list some bullet points about the classes that you took, talk to them about the program that you're applying to, maybe tell them the grades that you got. Professors are incredibly busy, particularly around this time of year, so the more time you can give them as a heads up, the better it is. Once they agree to write your letter of recommendation, you need to put their email directly in the application, so you don't even need to submit the app. You can do that before. The professor then will get a ping, or the supervisor, or whoever's writing your letter will get a ping, and they need to attach a letter. And so the more information you can give to them, the better. The GRE or the GMAT, which are standardized tests, are optional. I wouldn't be so concerned about these. I would be more concerned, we're more interested in seeing sort of how you did on your if you took some math or statistics or econ courses. Now, if I remember correctly, everybody in the room is a non-native English speaker. So if you did your undergraduate degree in English in a country where English is the official language, you do not need to submit a TOEFL or IELTS, which are English exams. So that means if you went to university in America, the UK, Canada, Australia, Kenya, those are all English-speaking countries, you do not need to submit a TOEFL or IELTS. If you did your undergraduate degree in a country where English is not the official language, even if you did it in English, so let's say you did your undergraduate studies in Tel Aviv in English, you would need to still submit a TOEFL or IELTS. It has to be valid within the last 2 years. We want to see at least a 100 on the TOEFL and at least a 7 on the IELTS or a C2 in Cambridge proficiency. The good news is that there is no application fee. And once you submit your application, we then set up an interview with you via Zoom. The interview, do not be afraid, is an opportunity for us to get to know you. We're going to ask you really what you've submitted. It's also an opportunity for you to get to know us. So with that, I'm going to stop here. Are there any questions about the application materials that we require to apply to SAIS?
They're looking at each other and they're saying no.
No,
They seem to be
good.
okay.
Well, if questions do come up, I'm here as a resource for you. So if we go to the next slide, just quickly, the application deadline for TAU students is February 1st. We've actually extended it for you guys. We understand that you're on a different academic calendar. So if you submit your application by February 1st, sometime in late February, we would contact you via email to set up an interview. After your interview, you would find out on March 10th whether you've been accepted into SAIS. If you have been accepted into SAIS, you would also find out if you applied for financial aid, what your financial aid allocation is. And so this is a good transition for me into the next slide to talk about the money. So I rather just be blunt. As an American institution, as you saw through our presentation, we have lots of opportunities for professional development. We have a high employment rate. If I can use the word, it's a credential that appreciates over time. But we are expensive as an American institution, and so it's very important for us that we try to make this education affordable. So within the application, there's an opportunity for you to tick a box that says whether or not you want to be considered for financial aid. When we say financial aid, what that means is we give out scholarships. We have a development office whose full-time job is to raise money. And those scholarships vary. They're allocated on a combination of need and merit. So we actually ask you to submit financials, sort of tax documents to us by February 15th, because once a student is admitted, the application then goes to the financial committee, I'll call it, where we look at the strength of your application, we look at your financial need, and we decide based on our resources what we can allocate. A strong application on average, and particularly for applicants that come to us from cooperative degrees, we try to give at least a half tuition discount. Obviously, this is going to be based on the merit and obviously financial need, but for us, that basically would make us competitive on par with a number of British universities, for example. What I would say to you is when thinking about financial aid, it is a process, right? So not only look to us, obviously we want to work with you. We're going to try to see based on our funding, how much we can give you. Also look at external sources of funding. And on the documents we've sent over and on our website, we've actually had our interns comb hours and hours of the internet to find you samples of external sources of funding. So these external sources could be maybe based on nationality, maybe they're based on foundations, maybe they're based on an area that you want to study. What most students do from all economic backgrounds and from all countries is they try to see how much money they can get from SAIS. They also concurrently apply for external sources of funding. Sometimes they take out small loans. Sometimes they even apply for jobs on campus. So it is possible to fund your education, but it is a process and it requires planning. What I would say is that an investment in SAIS is an investment in your future. To study at one of the top graduate programs in international relations, to learn about careers and professional opportunities you probably didn't even know existed. And surely, as I mentioned in our mission, we believe in giving our students the tools to embark on rewarding careers. But it's also an opportunity to become part of that powerful network that Professor Finkel mentioned and to engage with alumni across the world. So with that, as we go to the next slide, see here, we have a video. It lasts about 3 minutes. It's students, actually, if you could, is the video, should be, oh yeah, we can go to the video. It's in another link here. Yeah. It's an opportunity for you to learn about us. And these are their students speaking in their own words. And after the video, Professor Finkel and I are available for your questions.
Formative, obviously challenging, excellent teaching, intellectually stimulating, interesting, incredibly rewarding,
welcoming, exciting,
tight-knit community,
uplifting,
like grandiose,
global,
international,
connected. SAIS Europe is a great small family.
Right combination between excellent academics, exhilarating student life, and a great network of really excellent people from all around the world.
I chose Johns Hopkins because it's one of the best schools in the world.
I chose SAIS because I love the fact how practice-oriented it is, and I have a feeling that I will be best prepared for work afterwards.
And coming to SAIS has enabled me to study it from a lens of intersectionality and how the economy, how the labor market, and how the humanitarian side all come together in a way that's going to advance not only my career, but my understanding of the world and my knowledge and my ability to connect.
I feel like this is a place where I can really improve my competences for my future career.
I absolutely believe this is the best choice I could have made at my age.
Had no question. I can't imagine where I would be without SAIS. This has been an experience that changed my life forever.
So with that, we are open for your questions. We have on the last slide just the contact information for you to stay in touch with us. But this is really an opportunity. You've got Professor Finkel in the room who's traveled to be with you in person. Here is the, it's sais.eu.admissions@jhu.edu. If you want to follow us on Instagram and see some of our stories, #SAIS Europe. But this is really an opportunity for us. We open the floor to the students in the room.
Thank you. So just a quick note. The young lady at the end of the video said, "I had no idea where I would be without SAIS." She is now working with the UN at Kathmandu in Nepal. Yeah, without any regional preparation, by the way.
By the way, I have a question. You mentioned something about working on campus. Is it possible for students to work on campus? Because this is something that doesn't happen like in the US. It's not possible, but and in Israel sometimes it's not. But yeah.
Yes. So any student, any nationality can apply for a job, and the Italian government, because of the visa that you will have, we have opportunities for up to 15 hours a week. Usually it can vary. You could work in the library, you could work at the front desk. Some of our offices hire students for sort of admin support. I know, Professor Finkel, you've hired some researchers in the past. And some of our faculty.
I saw in the presentation something about GMAT, but it's optional. What does it mean? How it works?
Did you hear that? Is GMAT, it's optional? How does that work?
What's optional? I'm sorry.
The GMAT.
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about it. I will only say this. Those tests help if you are a very good test taker, particularly on analytics. Otherwise, I would not be concerned. We are more interested in seeing coursework that you've done, stats, math, algebra, econ. That's more important to us. But sometimes the students are applying to other programs, and so they have the GMAT. So if you have it and if you've done well and you're on the quant, that's what we're going to look at. But if you're not a good test taker, it could hurt you.
Any more questions?
Case, I already wrote to the master. Make me exempted from writing one.
At Tel Aviv?
No, in software.
Just a minute.
Which Science Paul? Okay, so Danielle, have you heard it? So
no, I'm sorry.
So the question is: so there is a student who already wrote a MA thesis in Sciences Po Lille, which is our other partner program. Will he be exempted from writing our thesis?
I would have to have the student email us because our agreement is with Sciences Po Lille is a program that we have a cooperative degree with, but the students at Sciences Po Lille come to us as a cooperative. So our cooperative is with Tel Aviv. So I can't answer that question until I understand the situation. So maybe if that student can send us an email. Normally it's if you've written a thesis at TAUi, then you would be exempt from writing a thesis with us at SAIS Europe. But if you wrote an undergraduate thesis, I mean, that's something else, you know. So it's the agreement with the cooperative degree that would exempt you. So I think you should send me an email.
Other questions? No? Okay, so then everything's good. Thank you so much for the
Thanks, Daniela.
presentation.
Thank you. Have a lovely day, and I look forward to meeting and reading you and meeting our colleagues in the near future.